Hello, my friend. Welcome to this Action Pod number 51. This is Operation Greatness Freeing the Matrix and Parasite Cleansed podcast number 51. It's entitled You've Got the Power. First of all, let those words roll over you. How is that connecting for you? You have the power within you to create anything that you want. You activate that power by, well, how do you do that? What is your answer? What is your knowing? What is your intuitive sense about that? By having a very clear focus, by having a vision that is guiding you, leading you, moving you forward toward its fulfillment, where every day you're moving steps or you're running miles toward that destination. That's your North Star. That's your guiding light. That's what is directing you toward your life of your design. So, what is that distinction? What is that destination, your destiny, and how actively are you keeping that locked in your sights, directing you where every action you are taking is moving you closer toward that fulfillment? How much is this leading you every day? And within each day, every moment? Because nothing matters more than you fulfilling this, right? So, what is that for you? By the way, talk about all of this in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind, because that's where we're all working together in creating this. And if you're leading your own Operation Greatness chapter in your community, then we're doing this as our chapter meeting for today, and we're doing the video, and you're leading, inspiring, transforming, and liberating every one of your online friends through joining us and living that fulfillment of their destiny, their destination, having that locked and loaded in sight. For example, destiny, my destination that we are all creating together is that we have transformed the lives of 1.72 billion people. So your power is beyond measure. So let's create this right here. Together, we have helped 1.72 billion people become very wealthy, living their Dharma through freeingthematrix.com and Operation Greatness. This is the greatest thing we've ever done and the higher purpose of all of our lives. That feels right to you, right? Because it is. That's humanity's dharma. We're all creating this together. So would that feel right for you to make that your focused use of your infinite power, where you are, for example, leading, inspiring, transforming, and liberating every one of your online friends, getting them stepping into their power and creating that, like you get your 1,200 people who are getting their 1,200 people. So they're stepping into their power and this is their North Star as well. This vision that we have helped 1.72 billion people become very wealthy, living their Dharma through freeingthematrix.com and Operation Greatness, and those 1,440,000 people getting their 1,200 people. That's how we have together helped 1.72 billion people become very wealthy, fulfilling their higher purpose, because this is the greatest thing humanity has ever done. So if that feels right to you, then let's create that together. We're doing that through our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. It's pretty easy and straightforward, and everyone is here to do that, except you're not just here to get your 1,200 people. You're here to get every one of your online friends transforming their lives and leading, inspiring, transforming, and liberating every one of their online friends as well. No one left behind. That feels right to you, is that right? So let's do this together then. That's through freeingthematrix.com. So We're already right here. I mean, go back to the beginning of our Action pod number 51, you've got the power. You've seen right here that just by getting your 1,200 who are getting their 1,200, those 1,440,000 people getting their 1,200, and my friend, you transform the lives of 1.72 billion people. You've got the power to do that. So do that. Be that inspired visionary leader. Does that make sense? Does that feel like that's your higher purpose? It's why you are, in fact, in a body right now as spirit, because this was the most monumental turning point in human history, and you had to be here to help us create this, help all of us become free. I am sovereign, I am free. This is my duty, my destiny. You are sovereign, you are free. This is your duty, your destiny. We are sovereign, we are free. This is our duty, our destiny. We're doing this together through freeingthematrix.com. So make sure you're doing this and go to the About page and get your invite people link, because this is where we're doing this. So you've got the power to transform the whole world, to liberate our human family, to liberate humanity. And we're all doing this together through our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. So pause and reflect on each point related to your life, and then post about that. And in each of your posts, use your invite people link, because your focus is on getting all of your online friends. And if you have 10 people, then get 10 people. If you have 10 million, then get 10 million. And if you're Elon Musk and have like 219 plus million, then get 219 plus million. And that's still the higher purpose of his life and the higher purpose of all social media platforms, because it's how we're all connected, and it's for this very reason that we are all connected now. And even if you're President Trump and have like 105 million or more himself, this is still, I mean, get 105 million people doing this, and this is still the higher purpose of his life as well. It's every one of our higher purposes, because this is humanity's defining moment. This is humanity's liberational moment as well. So, as you've seen, you've got the power to transform the lives of 1.72 billion people. So, do that right here through this action pod number 51. You've got the power. So, let's step back a moment, and I want to share with you how I intuited that I have the power. And through me knowing that I have the power, I want you to relate this to your life and for you to see how you have the power within you as well. Okay, so I've been doing the parasite cleansed process myself and becoming parasite cleansed. I think I began that, I don't know, what's today, May 8th? Probably somewhere around a little more than a month ago is when I started that. And I started doing it more intensely 2 Saturdays ago, because I added a new coach to my team, and this is his specialty is, well, helping people recognize how they had been self-sabotaging their success, happiness, joy, fulfillment, well-being, peace of mind, prosperity, meaning, impact, contribution. And I mean, even though I've been doing this work since, well, I started doing it for others, I became a master coach back in 1998. And I've taught Think and Grow Rich at the master's level since 2003, and the Master Key System at the master's level since 2002 before then. I've been doing this a long time, and yet I've been working on myself. Well, I remember I started using subliminal audio recordings back in 1991, I think it was. And that was when I worked at the Green Bay newspaper. Anyway, so, I mean, this stuff has been part of my work for decades, and yet I've been so completely blown away and transformed by doing this parasite cleanse by becoming parasite cleanse myself. And that's where we're recognizing, I mean, this is required of every one of us, by the way. Make sure you're going to parasitecleansed.com and doing this process yourself. For me, this has been the second greatest thing that I've ever done. And I think it would be, I would almost be willing to bet it will be the best thing that you've ever done. It's only the second best for me. Well, I give you that story when you go to parasitecleanse.com. I don't need to repeat that again here. So when you're becoming parasite cleansed, you're doing, let's call it a 26-page questionnaire. It might be a lot longer than that when you add your answers to it. And it's very comprehensive. It's revealing to you exactly where you were, unknowingly, unconsciously sabotaging yourself. And that's been like profound for me to recognize myself. I was totally oblivious to all these areas. I mean, I knew some areas where I was sabotaging myself, and now I'm on board to stop that, to completely rid myself of that. And I challenge you to, well, become parasite cleanse yourself and to become clean of all of the areas that you were hurting yourself by taking in the poison around you, like especially in your food and in your water, and become clean for 3 months. That will be itself liberational for you. Becoming parasite cleansed, I believe, will be the best thing that you've ever done to better yourself, and the most important thing you've done to become free. You are sovereign, you are free. This is your duty, your destiny. So that requires you to stop poisoning yourself and to become strong. And that's in your power. I mean, you've got the power. So, like, I was working on this questionnaire. I don't know if this was probably, like I mentioned, I began doing this. I began becoming Parasite Cleanse myself 2 Saturdays ago. And let's say I think I worked a lot that first Saturday on the questionnaire. And so I don't remember if it was like I was working on it like until maybe 10 or 11 at night, I think. And I don't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday. I think it was Sunday night. And then Monday morning when I awoke, because that was what my mind unconsciously was processing, was relating to that focus overnight when I was sleeping. And the next morning, I just had this very profound hit about my dad. This is what I want to share with you because I grew up respecting my dad's older brother. He was 2 years older than my dad. And they were for a long time like competing with each other, like in tennis and maybe in college, maybe with their grades, like intellectually. They're both brilliant people. And anyway, they had this friendly like back and forth, who's the smartest, who's the most intelligent, who's the brightest, who's the, you know, best athlete, strongest, whatever it was. They kind of had this competition, like a sibling rivalry. And I respected my uncle, and I did not so much respect my dad because I was always the striver, like I was number three in my class. And that was perfect for me because I was also shy and scared and timid. I had low self-esteem. I did not believe in myself. So the salutatorian and well, the valedictorian and the salutatorian, first and second, they had to give speeches in front of the whole student body and all the teachers and principal and everybody. I was number three, so I was the historian, I think is what they called it in my class, and that was perfect for me because I didn't have to speak in front of the everybody, which would have terrified me. So I was perfect there. I was number three, so everybody knew who I was, and it was, I felt good, but anyway, and so like in my newspaper career, I was a reporter for 6 years, an assistant managing editor for 4 years before I wrote my first book, Experience Unconditional Love this year. And anyway, when I was in newspapers and I was assistant managing editor, I wanted to be the editor of the New York Times because that back then before the New York Times became corrupted and sold its soul to, the globalists, the parasites, the predators, as so many, I mean, as almost all, virtually all mainstream media did. This was back when we still had integrity as journalists, as the media, as the fourth estate. And anyway, I mean, that was the pinnacle of the profession of journalism for me, was being the editor of the New York Times. And how could I settle for anything less than the best for myself? Because the nature of the universe is expansion, right? And I feel that, I know that. And even back then, I just intuitively, I guess I was starting, I mean, it's been a lifetime of growth, right? And anyway, so I was always very ambitious. I wanted to be the best. And my dad's brother, well, he was a professor at MIT, and my dad was a professor in a state university in Wisconsin. And yet, I mean, that's okay. I attended college there myself. I wanted to attend at MIT. And if I was my uncle's child instead of my father's child, I would have been able to go to MIT for free. And I used to like that used to be like a big regret of mine, almost like I wished, like I had the wrong parents or fathers, to be more specifically, because I would have gone to MIT and my uncle's daughter did not qualify to go to MIT. I would have gone there myself, and that would have been, I mean, anyway, but that's what I would think about because, like, my dad's brother, my uncle, he also created the device, he invented the device that Stephen Hawking used to speak. That was my uncle. I got chills just feeling that. My uncle invented that device that Stephen Hawking used to speak. And when he died, Stephen Hawking, I don't know, it was part of like a video of highlights of my uncle's life that's I think his daughter created. There was a video of Stephen Hawking saying that he considered my uncle to be a friend. My dad didn't have that same acumen, or he didn't apply himself that way. He was a professor for like a math professor at the university for, I don't know, 36 years or maybe more. And so I felt like he was coasting through life. And like if I was a college professor and I could have been on that path easily, as so many people in my high school class did, because we had the college in the local town where my dad worked and so many other people in my high school worked. And so I could have probably easily become a professor there. But if I were there as a professor, then I would have been the department chairman and then like assistant chancellor and then chancellor and then like president of the university system. I mean, that would have been like, my career path because how could I stay small? How could I not grow and become more? Because that's my nature as it is for every one of us. And I felt like my dad was kind of playing it safe and wasn't really ambitious. I mean, like my uncle, besides inventing this device that Stephen Hawking used to speak, which he sold and he became a millionaire. And I mean, he would also buy like brownstone, I think they're called brownstones in the Boston area, and like huge, like maybe, I don't know, let's say 3,000 square feet manors or floors, and he would fix them up and he would sell them and he would make a lot of money. He was ambitious, he was entrepreneurial. So he was like my mentor growing up. So certainly my uncle had the power, and it was only by me becoming parasite cleanse myself and focusing on that overnight that I recognized, oh wow, my dad had the power too. And it's just that, well, let's connect the dots here because I want you to see that you have the power within you. And so look at like I mean, this is your invitation to see this very deeply. Like, were you respectful of your father and your mother? Or was it someone else who was like the mentor or the model of success for you? Who was that person? Like that person, I want you to recognize that that person had the power. And yet, did you get your power, the mystery, mystical? It's beyond the mind to understand the power that you have to create anything you want. You accept that you have that, right, within you. We'll talk more about that later. Let's put a little bookmark there because that's really important in this conversation as well. So, to connect the dots further, this is what I recognized in the morning after I focused on this questionnaire that every one of us needs to complete to see all the areas we were self-sabotaging. And it does ask a lot about, the questionnaire asks a lot about your parents and what you learned from them, their behavior, their toxic behavior, what they did to sabotage themselves. Most likely you learned to do that yourself. And so becoming aware of that is critical, as because if you're holding yourself back, if you're poisoning yourself, can you have everything that you want, or does having everything you want require you to focus your power and to create that without holding back or limiting yourself or playing small in any way? Pretty obvious, right? You need to focus the power that you have to live at the fulfillment of anything that you want, right? Pretty clear and straightforward, and everybody can understand that, I think. So, so what I recognized, I connected some dots that I had forgotten about, which was this was very important to my dad. When he was in college, he was going to be an engineer. He went to, I think, a well-known engineering college, except he saw that they, meaning the government, was pulling the scientists or the engineers into working on the atomic bomb. This to me is like so huge in my life anyway. So I want you to see, because I didn't have a lot of respect for my dad. I felt he was almost like a failure, to be honest. Like he had, because he was just kind of like doing the bare minimum. He wasn't striving, he wasn't growing, he wasn't achieving like his brother did. Because that's how I am. So that's like the measuring stick that I held him to as well. Except my dad told me that he became a mathematician, a math teacher instead of an engineer, because he didn't want to work on the atomic bomb. He had this feeling or this knowing that they would have pulled him, like they would have steered him or grabbed him or, directed him into working on the atomic bomb. And he didn't want to have any part of that. To me, that was like so huge to connect the dots here. So, oh, see, I'm getting chills here just reflecting on this. Because my dad was a man of integrity, a man of honor, because he could not violate his ethics, his morals, and become a contributor to death and destruction and murder by the, well, I mean, it was called the government, but it was really the globalists, the parasites and the predators controlling most aspects of the world today before all of us led our own Operation Greatness chapters in our communities. And we demanded that our local areas stop poisoning the water supply with fluoride and chlorine. and that we have no poisoning of the skies over our head with the chemtrail poisoning. I mean, every one of us has to step up now and be that leader in our local areas as well as among our online friends. And we're talking about all of this and we're doing all of this through our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. Make sure that you're joining us there and talk about everything that we're contemplating and seeing here. So it's like my dad. Okay, so remember, I don't know if it's the Apache Nation or the Sioux. I forgot which nation it was where they, like the elders or the leaders of that tribe or that community, they would only take an action that would help 7 generations away from them, like their children's 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 children, something like that. I don't know. Otherwise, if it was not good for 7 generations of that nation, they maybe it was the Iroquois. If it wasn't good for them, they would not do that. So they were very conscious of the generational effects of the actions that they were taking. And so I love and so appreciate and respect and admire my father now because he knew that he would have been contributing to the development of the nuclear bomb. I mean, my uncle, his brother, can say he invented this device that Stephen Hawking used to speak. What a contribution to the world that was, right? I mean, because Stephen Hawking, look at what he contributed, and yet would he have been able to do that without my uncle? And my dad, I mean, for him, he would have instead had to carry this burden on his shoulders or in his heart that he was responsible for the murder of, or slaughter of, or the incineration of, whatever it was, 2 million Japanese people or something. I mean, yes, we can argue about the morality of that. Was that a positive because it ended the war faster? Or was that just, unspeakable violence and misery and suffering and destruction? And I mean, but anyway, my dad was not part of that because so I was appreciating that my dad actually did have the power and he made a big sacrifice of his own future, of his destiny, perhaps, to not be on the side of evil or death or destruction or murder. He instead was able to lead a clean life by giving up so much, by becoming a math professor instead of an engineer that the government used to build an atomic weapon of mass murder and destruction. And as a result of that, he lived a humble, simple, clean consciousness and humble, simple, clean life in a small town in Wisconsin. And he raised a family and he he gave up so much by making that choice. And yet he lived a full life and he lived with that choice and he made the best of. I mean, that became his life. And yet, because you know that, I don't know if you've studied family constellation. Do you know about that? Where, and I've worked on this myself. And I mean, I've done work with a group in Sedona and it's quite magnificent. And anyway, I mean, like one time, well, anyway, family constellation is that you're, like that nation of, whatever it was, the Apache or the Sioux or the Iroquois. I think it was one of those three, but I don't remember. Maybe I would say the Iroquois if I were to guess. The actions that you take affect 7 generations of your children. Well, So your parents affect you. I mean, that's an obvious thing because they raised you and they trained you. You developed your habits and your beliefs largely through them and their habits and beliefs, which were developed by their parents. And, their parents came from their parents. And, so it goes. Well, I mean, so my dad being clean of that bomb, that weapon of mass destruction, he did not, I mean, I did not inherit that karma. It's what it really is about. And that is so huge, such a big, important gift. So I realized that my dad did have the power. And I mean, I knew that I've got the power from at least my uncle, or it's in my genealogy, or is that the right word? My DNA, my genes. And so I, okay, so I recognize that I've got the power and that where I give my attention, I'm giving my power, and that's how I'm creating my life and how we are together creating our world. This is hugely important for you to recognize that you also have that power. So, who was the influence in your life as a child? You looked up to that person. Who was your role model? How successful was that person? What did that person think about money? How deserving did that person feel? I mean, like my uncle was very humble. He was quiet. My dad was quiet too. He didn't, I mean, if you looked at him, you would have thought he was a very kind, successful, wealthy person. He carried himself that way, and yet he didn't have any pretenses. He wasn't pretentious. He was very approachable. Like, one of my friends has a 165 IQ, and he was very honored. He was a college friend. He was very honored to have met my uncle, and that was almost like meeting. I mean, for him, it was almost like it felt like he was meeting like a superstar, a celebrity, somebody like, like one of the most brilliant minds that he's ever known. Like, so I guess he thought of my father that way too, because my father, like, I don't know, this is kind of like a joke or story that we had. Like he had, I don't know, 26 or 24 matchsticks, and he arranged them in a way that was like none of them, they were all touching each other, but none of them were touching another one. And it was like I mean, it was, my dad was a pretty brilliant mathematician, and he developed some kind of a thing called carousel numbers. He invented that or discovered that, which is like how prime numbers, the square of prime numbers repeat in a predictable way. And he found that pattern. And I don't know, like he gave a talk on that in the annual math convention, and he published a paper on that. But that's not like allowing a great mind like Stephen Hawking to talk. I mean, and anyway, but so we live with the choices that we make, and we must sometimes make a stand for our principles, for honor, for what we know is right. We must not do wrong, especially not doing wrong to others, like in the metaphysical language of Sanskrit, this is called ahimsa, doing no violence, doing no harm. I mean, like how many people betrayed that oath, like how many doctors betrayed that oath as part of what I call the attempted totalitarian takeover that began in March of 2020, or I call it Fraud 1.0. How many how many people became immoral and became agents of evil themselves? I mean, how many people have such huge karma, the burden that they live with every day by their own irresponsible, reprehensible, unconscionable choices, like to force this narrative of evil on their children? I mean, they have this burden now that they need to undo by doing so much good in the world. I mean, like if you were one of them and you did this to yourself, acted so reprehensibly, irresponsibly, unimaginably evil is what it was. And if you did that to your children, then I would say that you have to lead your own Operation Greatness chapter in your community and make sure that you have transformed the lives of everyone in your local area. And you have to do so much more good to undo such reprehensible damage. Anyway, I mean, to me, like your actions create your life and you have to live with the consequences of those actions. And yet, how many people, well, this is a big part of being parasite cleansed, actually. How many people are only thinking of the short-term they're not even thinking of the consequences of their action. They're just like looking like 10 minutes or 5 minutes or 15 minutes from now. They're not thinking 3 years, 5 years, 15 years, much less 7 generations ahead. The short-term gratification, because that was programmed into us, that was manipulated into us. This is what we all have to recognize as part of our of becoming parasite cleansed, of being responsible adults, because this is like what a child does. A child just thinks, "Oh, I want that candy, I want that junk." And then they fill their faces with it, and then an hour later they're throwing up or they're sick or not feeling well because they didn't think about the consequences, right? I mean, we got a whole society basically of juvenile children who are short-term fixated and they're stuffing themselves with poisons. They're taking in the poisons in the food, in the water, and in the air, and in the TV, and in the dumbing device. And anyway, we have to expose all of this and we have to cleanse ourselves of this so that we can be responsible, mature, contributing adults. That's why becoming parasite cleansed is so, I believe it's required of every one of us. This is the rite of passage that we had manipulated out of our lives. That's at parasitecleanse.com. So, what do you think about all this? So, relate this to you now. You've got the power. I hear that what's it called? CNC Music Factory, I think. That song, You've Got the Power. I've got the power. And it's like a dance tune from the, I don't know, 1990s probably. Anyway, it's kind of catchy and fast-paced and fun and like, jump jump music is what one of my girlfriends that I dated for 16 years would call it. Jump jump music. Anyway, so who was that person who was your inspiration, your role model, and to what extent was that person aware that that person had the power? And so, I mean, even as great of a man as my uncle was, and relate this to even Stephen Hawking, or like who's the greatest example that comes to mind for you? For me, it's Albert Einstein. Would you say that's pretty fair for you as well? And yet, what did Einstein do? I mean, he created the law of relativity, right? E equals mc squared, or the theory of relativity. And yet, they say, I mean, conventional wisdom is, this has been taught for years. I don't know if it's been changed since I learned it back in school, maybe, that the average person might have used 2 to 5% of their brains, and yet Mr. Einstein is said to have used like 7 to 8% of his brain, right? So that's like what, 50% more maybe than the average person. And yet, what I intuitively know, and I want you to check this out with yourself, is that how much of your brain you're using equates with how much of your potential you are achieving. How do you relate to that? How do you respond to that? So the average person is unsuccessful, is unhappy, is mediocre at best, or is struggling and suffering and has low self-esteem and doesn't feel like he or she is worth anything or worthy of success or worthy of love and doesn't matter. Is that pretty fair? Does that describe you? Or to what extent does that describe how you feel about yourself? So, I mean, think of it like, that the person who stands up and does something of himself or herself, that makes people uncomfortable. They try to tear that person down because that's like pointing out, in some real sense, their own feelings of being inadequate because they feel guilt and shame for settling, for not living their potential. Because we're all here to do something great, like, I mean, to me, it's such an obvious thing that we are all here to lead, inspire, transform, and liberate everyone we are blessed to have connected with us, all of whom we are here to liberate and become free, as all of us have come together and helped 1.72 billion people become very wealthy living their Dharma through freeingthematrix.com and Operation Greatness and ParasiteCleansed.com. And this is by far the greatest thing every one of us has ever done. And it's so apparent to me anyway, this is the higher purpose of every one of our lives. You have that sense yourself right now, right? Because you have the power to do that. And you've got the power to liberate our whole human family. 1.72 billion people, and then from there, those people are transforming their friends' lives, and that's reached everyone. And you have had more impact on all of us than anyone who has ever lived, other than Jesus Christ himself. That's how I see it. That's what I know. By you doing that right here, you have the power to liberate humanity. And that's what we're all doing together and serving and supporting each other in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. So, is there any more important use of your power than this? I want to make sure that you recognize this power that you have. So, who is that person who was your mentor? So, I mentioned my uncle was mine. And yet, going back to even Albert Einstein and my uncle and my father and probably my father's father, my uncle's father. And I mean, how much of their potential did they not achieve? Like, if Albert Einstein used like 7 or 8% of his mind, and to me, that's so clear, that means he only achieved 7 to 8% of his potential. And I can see that with my uncle. Like, yes, he did very well and he contributed meaningfully to the world, and yet how much did he not achieve of what he could have achieved? And so let's look at your life now. Like I'm looking at my life, and if the average person uses like 2 to 5% of their brains, and yet that also equates with only achieving 2 to 5% of our potential. And I can see that with my life. And I want you to recognize that you have only achieved that much of your life so far. But yet now you've got the power. So use the power. And that requires you to have that vision for something greater than yourself that you are creating, like joining us in humanity's unifying manifestation, because your power is beyond measure, and together we've helped 1.72 billion people become very wealthy living their Dharma through freeingthematrix.com, Operation Greatness, and ParasiteCleansed.com. And this is by far the greatest thing we've ever done and the higher purpose of all of our lives. So create that. That's the vision we are together moving toward. And that requires, that's only, I mean, 1.72 billion people becoming very wealthy, living their dharma. That's just from you getting your 1,200 people who are getting their 1,200 people who are getting theirs. And that's 1.728 billion people. That's your higher purpose, right? And so by making that your focus, by choosing that as the focus of how you are using your power, you've got the power, then creating that vision is where you are accessing that power. And that's using more of your brain and achieving so much more of your potential. I mean, you have the power. I've shown it to you now by you getting your 1,200, getting their 1,200, getting theirs. You have liberated 1.728 billion people. You've got the power to do that. How much more of your potential than you've used so far, achieved so far, would you have achieved by getting your 1,200 people? And leading your own Operation Greatness chapter in your community as well, and becoming parasite cleansed, and then leading everyone connected with you, all your online friends, and everyone in the community, maybe becoming parasite cleansed, and yet mainly leading your own Operation Greatness chapter in your community, all through freeingthematrix.com, our mastermind there. How much more of your potential would you be using, achieving, living by doing all that? That would be where you are focusing your power and using your greater mind power and the power that you have in that vision. Is that pretty clear and straightforward and obvious? And you've got the power, so use it. Like my uncle did not do any of that stuff because this wasn't there, because this is my contribution to the world. And I've got the power and I'm using it to empower you to live your greatest fulfillment, potential, success, happiness, joy, well-being, peace of mind, meaning, impact, contribution. All of this I am helping you achieve. I'm giving you the tools to do this yourself. And we're all serving and supporting each other through our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. How important do you know this is for you to do yourself as the focused use of the power that you know you have? You've got the power. My friend, you are God's gift to the world. So be it. The more you're being that gift, the more impact you're having, the more success you're enjoying, the more wealthy you're becoming. And that all starts by you becoming parasite cleansed yourself through parasitecleansed.com. And yet, this is all through the freeingthematrix.com mastermind. So, how are you seeing yourself being the inspired visionary leader it is your destiny to be? Right here, even in this action pod number 51, you've got the power. Will you go back to the beginning of this if you haven't been doing that and pause and reflect on each point here and relate it to your life and then share your feelings about that insight? How you're, what are your examples of that? How you're feeling about this? How you're knowing this is the work of every one of us because this is the monumental turning point for everyone in our human family. This is the greatest moment humanity has ever lived, in fact, by every one of us doing this now ourselves through our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. You're feeling this, you're knowing that, and then so go back and share your thoughts about each of the points with your invite people link that you got on the about page of our freeingthematrix.com mastermind, and then take all of those posts that you've shared and put them into the essay that, as always, you're sending me at dan@danclatt.com, and then also take that essay and post that in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. And then look for the posts like the essays that other people are sharing, and then you can post their insights, and we're all going so much deeper into everything we're talking about here in our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. So this is the greatest way every one of us is being of greater service to more people. Like all your online friends, you're now leading them through being that inspired visionary leader of everyone they know and have connected with them, all their online friends, for example. So you're transforming all your online friends who are then transforming all of theirs. So that means you have transformed the lives of all of their online friends. You see how much more of your potential you're actually using here just by focusing yourself on being of greater service to more people, leading, inspiring, transforming, and liberating everyone you can reach very quickly and easily with almost no time, energy, thought, or effort online through the social media that is uniting us all. And now we're using it for its higher purpose and transforming the lives of every one of us. You see how great this is? So do this now. We're doing this together through freeingthematrix.com and our freeingthematrix.com mastermind. Any questions? What was most meaningful in here for you? How much more do you believe in yourself? How much more do you know you truly matter? You've got the power, my friend, and now you're focusing your power on being of greater service to more people, on being that inspired visionary leader of everyone you are blessed to be able to serve. This is your responsibility to do. This is your ability to do. This is your duty to do. So do it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I love you. I believe in you. I know how much you matter. Now you know that yourself as well, right? Thank you very much.